The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff or management of Visionary-related entertainment.
Aloha and welcome to Maui Nonprofit Notes. This is the show where each week you'll find us talking story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors and staff to find out how they're working to support those with needs within our community. Maui Nonprofit Notes is generously sponsored by Pacific Source. If you're building or remodeling a home, please stop by Pacific Source's cabinet and appliance showroom located in the Waikapu Bayshard. I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. During this hour, we share some of the experiences of our nonprofit agencies, just how they are changing lives, changing communities, and creating miracles of hope for those with needs. Today we have as our guests some folks from Women Helping Women. We have Stacy Moniz, who's the Executive Director, and we have Sonoy.
Go get it.
Yep, almost.
Work on it.
Ka'aihui.
Sonoy's good. Sonoy.
Yep.
Sonoy, what is it?
Ka'aihui.
Ka'aihui.
Mm-hmm.
Very
And
good.
she's the Deputy Director, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. So I thought I had Sonoy wrong.
No, Sonoy was great.
Oh, okay.
It's like Kanoy.
I usually get stuck on the first words.
Yeah. It's all good.
So,
She has a lot of extra vowels in her name.
yeah, all of them.
All of
Pretty
them.
much.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
pretty much. You don't have a U.
Yeah, she does.
Oh, yeah, there is.
I do.
That's right. You do. Okay. All right. Well, Women Helping Women. We talk about domestic violence. We talk about abuse. We talk about all kinds of things when we're thinking about the folks at Women Helping Women. And I thought we would just, we're going to spend the whole hour with the two of you today. And we're going to go a little more in depth than we usually can in a half an hour and talk about basic programs and how, you know, one of the things that always gets to me when I do a show like this on a subject like this is there's so much more of it out there than we realize.
Yeah, there is.
And we don't really think about it until we see a headline or hear the headline on the news or something like that. And then you start to think about, gee, that's kind of like when they start talking about the details, you think, that's kind of like what so-and-so's going through.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they've ever thought about getting some help on this. That's where I think we can come in very helpful for folks today, is
Absolutely.
maybe bring it to the everyday level,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's level, and talk about what's going on and how you as an outsider maybe can help when they don't think they can find help on their own.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the calls that we get are from people who know people who are being abused and not sure, well, how they can help or what can they do. And I like how you said that, in that we don't think about it unless we see something in the news. And thankfully, you know, in Maui, we don't hear about it as often because I think the responses locally to domestic violence have been really effective and not perfect by any means, but the less we hear about horrible domestic violence episodes, the better we're doing as a rule.
We're catching it before it becomes
Right. But
tragic.
That's not to say that domestic violence isn't affecting people horribly in their homes, affecting families, children, because it is. And it's estimated nationally that 1 in 4 women will be abused in her lifetime by an intimate partner. So that's a huge number of women. And, you know, more and more we're hearing about men who are also victims of domestic violence and men who are seeking services from our agency. So we know that the problem is big. We know that it happens much more. It's the most underreported crime, that and sexual assault. And so we know it's big. And one of the things that we're grateful for right now is that 2017 marks Women Helping Women's 40th anniversary. We've been doing this work here on Maui for 40 years. And I still, and I know Sonoy too, we still talk to women who say, gosh, you know, when I was going through this, there was no help. And so, you know, there are still a lot of people who didn't have access to services. And we're grateful that we've been around for 40 years now.
Do you get a lot of volunteers from folks who were in that situation?
You know, not as much as you would think. A lot of our staff are former survivors, myself included, and stayed at our shelter. And maybe they show up to volunteer, but then we end up hiring them. I think that's what happens. So if there's anybody out there that is a survivor and wanted to come back and work with us, we are actually hiring right now. I want to put that plug out too.
Oh, okay, good.
We are definitely looking for bilingual staff who speak Spanish and Filipino dialects. But yeah, so we do get volunteers that come back that want to help because we help them, yes. More than that, I think Women Helping Women is a self-fulfilling name almost, in that once we've helped somebody through the process, then they bring their friends and their families, because now they know if you are going through this, come to Women Helping Women and they can help you. So I think that's how they're volunteering, not officially in the agency, but they're bringing in their friends, and then now they're the women that are helping other women. So it's become self-sustaining.
That's interesting because your name, you got a reputation, okay, but they probably can't help me.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Does that happen at all? Huh?
Sure.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit actually. Yeah, we do get the calls on our hotline. That we don't necessarily have the services to fit what they're looking for, but we definitely want to have them call us so that we can refer them to the right agency or to the right services, because we know that it's hard enough to make the phone call, and it's an anonymous phone call, so they don't have to give any information if they don't want to, but we can help them process and figure out what that next step is going to be, whether it's with us or with another agency.
Interesting. Is that Go ahead.
Sometimes people call and they don't even know if they're a victim of domestic violence. And they'll actually, some people will insist that they're not because, well, he didn't beat me up. And domestic violence is so much more than just the physical violence. But that's what presents itself. And that's what we all think about. When we think about domestic violence, we're seeing black eyes and bruises. And in fact, most of the kinds of abuse that happen are not physical. They're controlling behaviors, mental abuse, emotional abuse. I can say personally, and I've heard from countless women, that the emotional abuse is the worst form of abuse. It just cuts you down and breaks you down till you're almost unrecognizable from your normal self. And then, so a lot of the calls we're getting are, I don't really know what's going on, but here's how I feel, and this is what's happening, and pretty soon, so they may not even realize that they're a victim of domestic violence. So we encourage people to give us a call if that's the case. If you're not even sure, you just want to talk to somebody, our hotline's available 24 hours a day, and I'll give that number out about 17 times during this hour.
That'd be good.
Yep, the number's 579-9581, and you can call 24 hours a day. There's someone there to answer the phone.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's sometimes when you just kind of get the feeling this is not right, what's going on in our situation. But is it domestic violence? Is it abuse? Is it whatever? And so if you're feeling that, make the call.
Absolutely. People say to me, how would you stay in an abusive relationship for 6 years? And to tell you the truth, when it all starts out, it's all really good. My ex-husband's so charismatic, so generous, so kind and helpful. And then the controlling behavior started. And it really wasn't like he just punched me in the face the first time we went out. That guy I would never see again, right? And that's the thing that people need to know. It sort of built up. And, on the one hand, he's saying how beautiful you are and smart and intelligent. And then the other hand, but you have no common sense, or, but your teeth are crooked and you have freckles and blah, 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 and so it starts to wear on you, and you don't know how to act responsibly in public. So I'm going to help you learn how to sit like a lady and dress like a lady. And yeah, that was my sort of the controlling behavior started like that. So that by the time he hit me the first time, it was kind of easy to excuse it as an aberration. Oh, that was a one-time thing. Like, that's not going to happen again. And God, he was so sorry. He was crying, and he, and so that by the time it's established as a pattern, and you start to think that this is a pattern, and that it doesn't, and part of that dynamic is that he's blaming you for all of his bad behavior. And I started thinking, well, it's true, I do talk a lot, and well, it's true, maybe I should shut up when he tells me to shut up. And so you start to blame yourself, and then, so all of these dynamics are happening at the same time that you're not quite sure if it's him or it's you, and then half the time he's so nice, and it's very complex, and everyone's situation is different, but there's that same common thread of the behaviors that are controlling, and their intention is to get you to do something that you don't want to do, or to stop doing something that you do want to do. And so it's all about power and control. It really isn't as much. The violence is like the last step. If everything else fails, if I can't control you with my language and my looks, if you don't get what I'm saying by my stink eye, then I'm going to have to take it up a notch. Then that's when the violence comes in. I know. I encourage people to watch Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts, the older movie, but it very accurately portrays the domestic violence.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very eerily so.
Mm-hmm. And to add on to that, for me, it was, so my partner, it was all psychological. It was that whole thing. The only way I knew that I was different was that people that were close to me or previously close to me said that I was different, that I was isolating
You've
and
changed.
all these things. Yeah, that you've changed. You've lost who you are. So that's a big key, and that was a really big wake-up call for myself. I know.
Part of that, as I understand it, is controlling who you see at some point,
Absolutely.
too. And just cutting you off from all the old friends. And
Yeah, and it started off for me, like, he would pick me up from work or drop me off at work and say, oh, no worries, like, I'll pick you up. It's not a big deal. And then afterwards, it would just be, oh, well, you can't go anywhere because I have to pick you up. So, it just starts with little things like that. I thought, oh my gosh, it's so sweet, right?
Yeah,
because, oh, he really wants to spend time with me and pick me up and take me here and there, but that's not what it was.
the means to an end.
Yeah.
It was control.
Wow.
But it's subtle, right? So,
Yeah.
and then some things are not so subtle, but then, it's really complex. And so that's why we always encourage people, come and talk story with us for a while, or call us on the hotline. And for me, I didn't trust people on the phone. I didn't know who I was calling, who I was talking
Right.
to. So I called over and over again just to kind of feel things out before I actually said, so about your shelter, I have a baby. Can I really just come and bring my baby in the middle of the night? And yes, so we get a lot of calls from people that are just sort of feeling it out. We've actually had women come up to the shelter, take a look around, check it out, see what it looks like, and then say, okay, thank you, and leave, just getting a feel for it because they wanted to see what it looks like. Thankfully, we did a big renovation a couple years ago, and the shelter is so beautiful. We have a beautiful shelter, and most people like staying there.
Do a lot of those people then eventually end up there?
Sure, yeah.
They do.
But they're just checking it out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even for me, I left. Leaving is a process, and people always say, why don't women just leave? And the truth is that it's so much more dangerous when you leave, because if you think about the intention behind domestic violence is power and control, if you leave, then he's losing control. And so now he's got to take the abuse up to another level. And so statistics show that victims of domestic violence are 75 times more likely to be killed when they leave. And we see that in all of the stories, those big sensationalized stories that we hear about, like the woman who was killed at the Foodland in Kehalani. She had just gotten a restraining order. She was trying to leave, and this happens over and over again. So it's validated in our own language. So that's one reason women don't just leave. So I really want people to know that, and we ask people to start thinking instead about, we're still blaming the victim. We're expecting the victim to save herself or save her family, save her children, or save himself. And it's the only crime where we expect the victim to save themselves. And so we need to look at that and start asking instead, why doesn't he stop? Why doesn't the person that's being violent stop, get help? And what are we doing to perpetuate these different forms of violence in our own communities by turning a blind eye, staying silent, or not saying, or not offering to help? So take that responsibility on. Are we raising our children to be violent? Are we raising girls to be submissive and boys to be, for a long time, the only emotion that men were really allowed to have is anger. Either you're fine, how are you doing? I'm fine, or I'm pissed. There really aren't very many other things that they're allowed in between there, right?
Right.
And where women could cry and be the soft, gentle ones. And so when women are pissed, that's not as acceptable. And we're definitely seeing that sort of on a large scale right now. But I do think that that's part of what, it's all kind of tied into gender roles, and violence against women is based on suppressing women and oppressing women and keeping us quiet and in our place. And we have a long, long history of that in our country. It goes back, even many countries have that same philosophy. So trying to change attitudes in the last 50 years of what's started as the women's liberation movement and then became the domestic violence and anti-violence against women movement, sort of broke off of that. That it's for the first time in our country's history, we said it's not okay to abuse women, and that was unheard of up to that point. In the 70s it started. So it's definitely been a road, and we're still continuing that, and we take 2 steps forward and trying to resist going 5 steps back.
It's how many steps? Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
We got to take a short break. We'll be right back with the ladies from Women Helping Women.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we're back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, the weekly radio show where we talk story with some of our executive directors and their staff about what's happening in the community and how they are trying to help, I guess we could say, fix the problem, but I don't know that we can actually fix it. We can just kind of help people through it.
Our goal is to work ourselves out of a job, right?
We all
most
say
of the
that.
nonprofits
Yeah.
want to do that. But it's a much bigger problem, and it's really entrenched in so many of our belief systems. And one of the things that I love about my nonprofit directors is the collaborations and the agency interactions that we get to have and learning from each other. We all sort of struggle with very similar challenges as executive directors, but so many of our issues, our causes overlap. And so domestic violence doesn't happen in a vacuum. We work a lot with Aloha House for substance abuse treatment, and they have a gender-specific Malama Family Recovery for women. We work with everyone. A lot of our women will go to the Kahaleakeola Homeless Resource Centers and
Maui Farm.
Mm-hmm. We work with so many of the nonprofits because we can't do it alone. We're just one strand in this whole safety net, and so I am always so grateful that my nonprofit directors kind of brings us together to talk story, because a lot of great collaborations happen as a result of that. So anyway,
conversations make it happen.
Oh, and it's happened actually in this room when being on the radio with another agency, and you're like, hey, I didn't know you did that. Well, hey.
Yeah, that's true. Some of the lesser programs that some of the other organizations have that we don't hear that much about are the ones that you need assistance with.
Exactly.
And I think, Sonoya, you mentioned that earlier on when you said when the calls come in, it's maybe not something you directly can fix or help, but you know who to help them go see. And
that comes from relationship building with other agencies. So it's good. Maui Nonprofit Directors is awesome. That's a great way to keep in touch, and also to hear their struggles are our struggles too. I mean, that is so important. I mean, it's knowing that we're definitely struggling with the same thing. We all get stuck in our own little agency bubbles, and it's nice to relate to other agencies. And,
Right.
Yeah. And know how we can partner up, because they know something that we're not doing, and where we're struggling in our agency, and having better resources for our women.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I know the one thing that always strikes me when we talk about this subject, and I mentioned this before the show, is the idea that if you're being abused, remember this: you're not alone, it's not your fault, and help is available.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of the road, or you're just stuck in it, or anything like this. But I kind of go a little further with that, and abuse. I start thinking about some bullying things that we see and hear about. And maybe this is a little off base, but tell me if it is. Somebody who's bullying people as a teenager, is there a chance that is leading to becoming an abuser?
I would say yes.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, and sometimes they're learning that at home, right? So kids who witness abuse are likely to turn around and be abusive or be victims of abuse. So a bully could be being abused at home or could be witnessing abuse at home. They say hurt people. So I always think about that in terms of bullying, and that what is it that creates a bully, and I would say the same elements create abusive partners too. You witness it at home, you learn that violence is power, and that works to get people to do what you want them to do, and that it is effective. If you really want somebody to do something and you threaten to beat them up, they're probably
That's pretty powerful.
It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Yeah, as kids, as young kids. I mean, I know that in some situations they try to hide this all from the kids, but at some point it comes out. Mm-hmm. And younger kids, at least it's in my, and I certainly no expert on any of this, but I think of younger kids kind of tending to go towards the side of the person who's being abused and want to help them or something. And then as they get older, do they go the other way and see hey, it works, I'm going to do that. And we talk about the cycle of abuse, which is the next generation, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, it's adding to the burden of the person who's being abused to know that this is going on, and you're bringing up somebody who's learning the wrong things from this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so things go many different ways. So for kids that are exposed to domestic violence, we worry about them a lot,
right?
And we should. But kids are really resilient. That's one of the things that I always tell people, because women will come to our shelter and be like, I should have left 10 years ago. I feel like a horrible parent. I'm seeing the effects of what growing up in this household looks like, and they feel horrible. And it's, really, that's really not going to help at this point. We just need to move forward from here. We can't change the past. So how do we move forward? And kids are really resilient. And we've seen this over and over again, where kids that come out of the most horrible abusive homes have something inside of them. And we've talked about resiliency factors at different conferences and stuff. And over they'll say all they need really sometimes is one ray of light in their life that says to them, no, this isn't normal. This isn't right. For you to be afraid at home I would be afraid too. And how can we help you move forward? And so we all have to be that ray of light for these kids in whatever role we're playing, whether we're the soccer coach or the teacher or the advocate at the shelter or whoever it is, even out of homelessness, even out of substance abuse, even out of horrific domestic violence. Kids come out of that and are valedictorians and go to college and do really well. We can't assume that they're all going to become delinquent, but we have to work on that, and I would say that even in families that there isn't domestic violence, you have to work on that.
Right.
That your kids could go astray even if there's no domestic violence. So, I didn't come from an abusive home, but I picked a violent partner. So it's kind of, it happens to normal people from normal families. And so we just, even today, I always say this, and people think that's interesting. I could go out today and start dating somebody that's abusive and not know it, but what's different today is that I wouldn't stay. But I could see how it could happen, that you could still get caught up in it and not see it happening. And, it doesn't look the same all the time. So people say, oh, gosh, there are women that go from one bad guy to the next bad guy. And you know what? Part of that is that it's very, it looks different. And some of these abusive guys are very charismatic. And I know, a lot of us know that these abusive partners go on to abuse multiple partners, that they will always be abusive in that partner. But the hope that I always hold out for victims of domestic violence is that you do not need to continue to choose partners that are abusive, even if there are abusive partners out there. That's where the change happens, and that's why we do what we do. Because working with people who use violence is really hard to get them to change behavior. It's sort of like working with drug addiction, and I don't want to say domestic violence is an addiction, because that's not true at all. But it's a pattern of behavior that's really hard to change. Once you establish your belief system that I have a right to batter my partner and control them and make them do what I want them to do, to give up that power is really hard, and it's something you have to consciously work on every day. And so for us working with victims of domestic violence, it's a lot easier. We see huge success stories all the time about not just the women in our programs, but their children as well. And so I know that people say, oh, it's so hard to work in domestic violence. And no, it's wonderful. We see good news all the time. Sure, we see the not so good news, but honestly, we see really huge successes from a lot of our women.
I would imagine that a success story is right up there with the best news you can ever hear.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't hear back from them, and that's good news,
and that's
too.
Good news,
Okay. Oh, really? Okay.
But with our 40th anniversary coming up, I'm going to drop a plug real quick. We are looking for former survivors who went through our program to share their story either in writing or on a video. You can shoot it with your phone, or it doesn't have to be super high tech, but just to share the impact that helping women had in your life. We're definitely looking for stories like that, and former board members, staff since 1977. We're looking for you, so please contact us at Women Helping Women.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, this has been going on since day one, I would imagine. It's just nobody knew what to call it or how to help or what programs could be available. Now, you do a lot of community education work in talking to groups, organizations. Do you go into the schoolrooms or classrooms?
By invitation.
We're really trying. That's one area that we hope to have an advocate there to help engage youth, particularly in the middle school section, because that's where we want to kind of start with them. Because by the time they get to high school, it's a little bit harder. Things are already going. We see a lot of relationships between students, and they come in and use our services. So we really want to work with them at the middle school level, even maybe late elementary would be
That's
ideal.
Interesting. Wow.
To talk about healthy relationships before they become violent. Yeah. It's hard, and it's hard to get into the schools. We'd love to, but you have to be invited, and certain teachers will call us in, like health teachers, or, it's interesting. One of the most interesting classes, I think it was a business class, they called us in to come and talk to, because someone had disclosed that they were living in a home where their parents were being abused. And I was so inspired by this high school and these kids in this classroom talking so personally about domestic violence. I knew that we had made a lot of progress in that moment, because here we are sitting in a classroom and they're talking about domestic violence, not just growing up in households of domestic violence, but witnessing domestic violence between their friends at school. And I think, in fact, that's probably why the instructor invited us in. Not as much to talk about, they wanted us to talk about nonprofits as a business, but it was very specific to talk about domestic violence, and kids were crying and opening up in the class. And I think there was somebody particular in that class they were very concerned about. So,
interesting way of approaching it. Yeah,
exactly. So you never know.
Are you painting a picture of what a good relationship is? how the give and take works and how it's you both have equal status and things like that versus the abuse and the overpowering.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, I think, maybe that's something nobody thinks about.
I don't think we do.
Not enough.
Yeah. I don't think anybody teaches you that. It's sort of like parenting. And all of a sudden you have a baby, and what do you do with this? And all you have to reference is what you've seen in your home. Sort of the same thing with relationships. So if what you're seeing at home is a very dysfunctional relationship, then that's what you're going to think is normal. And so, that's why, like Sonoya was saying, we need to interrupt that before they start dating. And kids are dating in intermediate school now.
Oh my gosh, really?
They are. Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
It's not, I'm just going to the movie with a friend, back in our time, 5 or 6 of us would get together and go, and it was just, no, we're not dating. It just happens to be 3 guys and 3 girls,
Right.
but we don't pair off, kind of thing. But today it's a little different.
It is.
A lot different.
It really is. But, to add to that, it really does take a village to raise a child. So if we all keep that in mind, what your village looks like, it really depends on who you have engrossed in your child's life. So, whether that be school officials, agencies, aunties, uncles, grandma, grandpa, it does take more than one person to raise that child.
Right. Now, can you step in if somebody calls you and says, I've got this neighbor that's got a real problem?
Actually,
that's a tough one, huh?
And that happens more than I would like to admit, because so many people want us to call their sister or call their coworker, or can you come in and talk to my friend? And really, that's not a safe option. We have to have them give us a call. So we're always encouraging friends and loved ones on how to, so we're sort of doing coaching, how to get your friend to call us, and all the different kinds of services that we can help with, everything from the shelter. And not everybody wants to come to the shelter. We totally get that. We have help with restraining orders. Not everybody wants to get a restraining order. We get that too.
I'm going to stop you right there. There's kind of a stigma to the restraining order thing.
Sure.
A lot of people feel that's like not kicking it up a notch.
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, and we've had, 2 sides of that. Some people have a stigma on it, and some people require it. Like, we've had employers say, you have to get a restraining order to keep your abusive partner away from your workplace.
Oh.
And so that puts an extra burden on the victim. I understand that, and that you don't want an abuse. A lot of violence in the workplace is domestic violence. They're coming into this workplace to target one person and end up shooting a bunch of people.
Right.
So
that's true.
The highest majority of violence in the workplace is going to be domestic violence. And that's the thing, like, people don't realize that so many shooting sprees and start off as domestic violence, unfortunately.
And I've never understood that. If that's the person you're after, take care of that. But why do you have to take all these other people with you?
Yeah. Well, or the murder-suicide. Just, like, skip the murder and just,
right.
I'm sorry. I'm okay with that. If we cannot, I get it.
Yeah.
If she can't have you, no. If I can't have you, nobody will. Then, and you want to take yourself out first, and then
and then do whatever you can, which is nothing.
Thank you. Yeah, but it's happened so much, and that's why we always say to people, if your partner's threatening suicide, that's a really big red flag, because if they're willing to take themselves out, they more than likely will take you with them, and that's a really big red flag. So, there are a lot of factors, things that make things more dangerous, and we don't know, right? So when you say, will we go in and intervene? No, we really won't.
Right.
But we also know that most of them are women. Most of these women really know how to keep themselves safest most of the time. And so we trust their instincts because they're living in it. And they might be working on an exit strategy, but we don't know that.
Right.
We have women who have literally taken one item of clothes out of their house for 2 years, strategizing on how to leave before they wanted everything to be in place. Their kids had to be a certain age. This had to be in Brighton place. I had to have this much money. I had to have. So never doubt that maybe your friend who's a victim who seems powerless is actually already planning.
Right.
It takes a lot. It does.
Wow.
It's a scary time.
Gotta interrupt you again with time for another break.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we're back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, talking story with Stacy and Sonoe from Women Helping Women. A lot of great input and insight that you've given here on the show. It's, as you say, it's not something that you can really jump into and say, yeah, we can help fix that. It's the need and the want has to be there on the party, the party that's getting the abuse.
Yeah. And I do want to say, though, that we have a full range of services for people, no matter where you're at, what you want to do. Even if you just want to talk story, we're there for people that just want to talk on the phone, who want to leave and run to our shelter. We just opened a shelter on the island of Lanai, so we have a shelter on Lanai. So even if, say, you didn't want to come to the shelter on Maui and maybe you wanted to go to Lanai, we can do that. Sometimes it's hard to hide from somebody on an island, so we want to help people with different options. We can help with things like rental assistance, security deposits, not for everybody, but for certain, if you meet our qualifications. But we want to be able to help people from wherever they're at. Even if you're going to choose to stay in the relationship, we get that. And how can we help you be safer? So I would give our hotline a call just to start the conversation. That hotline number is 579-9581. Always just give us a call. We want to help.
One of the things I wanted to touch on was elder abuse. Is that a growing thing as we have more and more people hitting that age group?
Well, yeah, I think we see at least a few calls a month about that. Luckily, we're pretty good with other outside agencies, so they'll call us if they need us or need to know what approach they should take. It's a lot of times it's their caregiver abusing them, or a grandson or granddaughter or someone like that who is not in the best situation, so obviously they're not able to take any action or anything like that, so they don't know what to do.
Again, we see the headlines on some stories where the son or the grandson has taken over the property, has signed off on this or that without having the power to do so, cleaned out bank accounts, savings accounts, things like that. But there's more to it than those big stories. Again, just like it is with the domestic violence.
And I have to say that it's really hard if it's your family member, if it's your son or your daughter, your granddaughter, it's really hard. You want to help them, you want to give to them, you love them. That's probably the most difficult piece of that puzzle, is that it's really hard. If it's a caregiver, it's easier, right? They're not in your family, or maybe it is hard too. But I know that with family members, it's extremely difficult. Grandparents will keep giving their grandkids money. They would keep want to help, even though everybody's saying don't do that anymore. Maybe their grandchild's addicted to drugs or whatever's going on. Everyone's saying don't do it, but they still will, because they love them and they want to help them, and it's really hard. So many of our cultures say we have to take care of our kids and our grandkids. It's very, very difficult. So like Sonoy said, we work with a lot of agencies, adult protective services. We are definitely seeing a rise in contact with agencies like them, because I think that our elder population is really growing, and the responsibility to take care of your family, it's hard and it's stressful and adds stress. So I think we'll probably see ourselves working more and more with like the Office on Aging because of the caregivers. They need support too. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see.
Wow.
But it's definitely a growing problem. I would say.
It's such a shame to see somebody just spend their whole life preparing for this time in their lives, and then to see it just disappear on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Either because they've grown up, like you say, with the idea of they're supposed to take care of their families, or it's they want to keep it, and for a lot of people, maybe it's shame.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Is that the big word?
Oh yeah, you don't want to tell people about your problems like that.
Yeah,
yeah. And then also too, as your parents become elderly, there's that sense of duty to take care of them, even though it puts an undue stress on you and your partner, your family. You got grandma living in the house, and then dementia setting in and different behaviors. So it's hard. It really is. It's super challenging dynamic on both ends.
Yeah. Wow. But if they have any thoughts that something like this is going on, either they or somebody in the family who feels that way should give you a call and talk it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's always best practice, just so we can help process. It's another set of ears to listen to and maybe give new insight.
Right.
Because there are people, some of the people who have been brought to our attention, it was some of those home visiting, like Meals on Wheels, like just different church groups that go and visit in with
the
elderly, who might be the ones that see what happens. You show up and all the glass is broken in the house. That's a red flag. So that's happened. That's actually a true story. Yeah. So, and the woman's cane was in the television. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Something's going on. So that person was quick to help and made a big difference for that woman's life. Yeah.
I'll bet.
But we don't know who's going to be the one that's finding this situation. Yeah. So we definitely want to be there to help, though, if can.
Interesting. Why abuse at all levels,
all
ages, all different styles and types. Okay. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and I hope all the folks out there listening have picked up some tidbits, let's say, of things, so that they can maybe spot some of the stuff that's happening before it becomes a real serious situation. We don't like headlines.
No. We prefer to not.
We prefer to work through it and get it cleared up, straightened out if it can be. If not, whatever steps have to be taken are taken.
I agree. I always try to tell people, if you suspect somebody's getting abused, call 911. It's not safe to intervene yourself, although sometimes people do, and I appreciate that, but it is dangerous. But call 911. I would rather people call the police, and the police say this too, and there's nothing going on, it's just a verbal argument, then we don't call the police, and then tomorrow's the headline. And I just always encourage people. I know it's hard, it's scary when you're neighbors, and they're going to know it's you, and even if you say it's anonymous, they're going to know it's me. Have that courage, because if you can just have that courage for that victim, I am grateful, and I'm sure that the victim
I would hate to have it on my conscience finding out that phone call I didn't make
no, it's true.
let something happen.
Absolutely.
And I think the other thing is, we hear about, okay, so the police have been called to this house 4 or 5 times, and then if something happens, it's like it's on the police because they knew something was going on. I did my part. I
really want to put that on the community. I don't think it's fair to have that burden only on the police.
There you go.
I think we all have to share that responsibility, that when someone dies in our community or is killed by their partner, that we all need to own that, because collectively we can keep people safe, and or safer. And so it's all of our responsibilities. We can't just let people out there to dry, they should have known better. The police were called 4 or 5 times. She should have known better by now. That's not
helpful.
No. And so our shelter on Lanai, while it would be impossible to keep something like that a secret on an island so small, our shelter is confidential here. on Lanai, it's very public. It's, in fact, when we first started talking about this in the late 90s, we said ideally it would be right next to the police station. Well, it's across the street from the police station, and it's pretty good. And
There
then
you
there's
go.
a church next door across the street too. So so I'm going to segue into our events that are coming up. Next week we have a production of the Vagina Monologues, and it's 2017 Defending the Vagina. We're raising money for self-defense classes.
How many years has it been since you did this production?
We've been doing it since 2006, not
Okay.
every year.
I was going to say, it's been a couple of years since you've
Yeah,
done it.
the last one we did, I think, was 2015.
Okay.
And there's a season for it's always around Valentine's Day. So now it's in February. You need to have your performances within the month of February, and the V-Day campaign, it's an international campaign. Eve Ensler did. She used to be a stand-up comedian, and she would do this thing, if my vagina could talk, it would say this, and what would it wear? And, and it was funny. And then she started doing interviews with women and asking them, trying to gather more funny stories. And then what she started finding out was that women have a lot of stories of abuse, of horrible sexual abuse, domestic violence. So their vaginas were angry, and there's a monologue called My Angry Vagina, and that things were. So she said, wow, I need to do something about that. And so she started doing this as a fundraiser. It's been, I want to say, 12 years now, where you can do a production of the Vagina Monologues in your community, but it has to benefit an agency that does either domestic violence or sexual assault or both. And colleges do it, and 10% of your proceeds goes back to the international campaign, where they go into like third world countries and do a lot of education and work there too. So that's on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Any hardy souls want to bring your date to the vagina, you will get definite points for that. Tickets are on sale at Maui Onstage. It's going to be at the EAL Theater at 7:30. And you can go to Maui Onstage, call them, or go to their website. Or you can go to our womenhelpingwomenmaui.org website for information on all of our activities.
So the 14th is a Tuesday, right?
It is a Tuesday.
Okay.
Yep.
The next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Wow. All of a sudden, February's half over.
It's almost, it's crazy how
I
fast
don't
it's going.
understand.
Because then right after that, on February 24th, we're having the grand opening of our shelter on Lanai.
Cool.
So I invite everyone to come and hang out with us. We're going to have food, of course, and a blessing, and just an open house, and for everybody to come and see our shelter. It's really cute. Volunteers from Maui, Lanai, and Honolulu have come to paint and fix it up a bit. We had a Rotary Club come from Oahu and do a service project there, and amazing connections. Everybody cares so much. They hear about a little shelter on Lanai, and everyone wants to help. It's
Right.
wonderful. So that's on February 24th. And then on March 5th is our big gala. Every year we do a big fundraiser, and it's our biggest fundraiser. And this year it's our 40th anniversary. And so, in an interesting twist of fate, another big epic thing that's turning 40 this year is Star Wars. So our annual fundraiser this year is called A Jedi Night. It's very clever. Thank you, Carly, for coming up with that. She's our creative genius.
Yeah.
And we're celebrating 40 years of The Force Within. And tickets are on sale now. And our gala is different in that we invite designers from the community to design the tables that the guests sit at. So every table is different, but it's all in the same theme. And so this year's theme of Star Wars is bound to be absolutely epic. We're excited to have all of our designers that are coming back, and so a few new ones. And we have sponsors this year. Kaiser's come in as a big sponsor. They've been really supportive of a lot of nonprofits in our community over the last year, I noticed. And I'm sure that has to do with their coming into the hospital. So they're working on building relationships here, which I think is terrific. And so they're our Master Jedi sponsor. And then we have Goodfellow, we have Maui Electric, we have Altra's employment company, we have A&B. So it's really a great, people come and we have a silent auction, a live auction. entertainment. It's a really fun thing and a great way to celebrate our 40 years of making a difference in this community. We have Angel Award winners every year. We present people who have been very, very helpful. And sometimes we have what we call an Angel Team Award. And this year's Angel Team Award is going to Pulama Lanai for everything they've done to help our shelter come to be. They even let us move in without paying rent because they knew how important our thing was. We got a grant and aid from the state legislature, and that takes a long time to come through. They let us move in even though we didn't have any money. They knew the need was there, and so that kind of thing. Their staff and their employees, their maintenance and facilities guys, I mean, just incredible support there.
That's
and
great.
then our Angel Award winner is a woman named Kimberly Miyazawa Frank, who worked at Pulama. She now works for Department of Human Services in Honolulu, but at the time she was critical in making the shelter happen on Lanai.
Cool. So do you already have residents in the shelter?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
No. And that's going to, I thought for sure the minute we opened the door, because we have a lot of need for housing there, so we brought them here, and then we've arranged with other people on Lanai as a safe house option. So we knew that there were, but I think people are scared to be the first.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very public, like I said, and our request to the community is to help us keep it safer and to not have judgment on the women there and instead support them. So I think once nobody wants to be the first,
Right,
but
right.
we have beautiful furniture going in. They're still painting the interior, but by the 24th we'll have it all together. It's going to be all brand new, everything. We got CS Wool in Honolulu.
Wow.
Donated furniture and gave us half off.
Incredible.
Incredible, beautiful
Yeah.
furniture.
Maybe somebody from Maui will be the first one.
That's true too, or from the other islands, because
Yeah.
sometimes you need to really run away when you run away.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but we are ready, and
Cool.
we got Wi-Fi. I think that's
That's a plus. That's cool. Okay, so we're talking about we're going to wrap
Our
up the
Jedi
show here
night,
with
yep.
the two
Join
events.
us.
We've got
Go
V-Day.
Find us on Facebook,
February
Women Helping
14th.
Women Maui. All of our events are there.
Okay.
Our website, womenhelpingwomenmaui.org.
I always love to go to your website after the event to see all the pictures
yes.
and the gorgeous table
You've
settings.
got
and-
to go
And
check
everybody's
out.
dressing up this year.
They are.
Gotcha. Cool.
Thank you. Thanks so much to Pacific Source and
Yeah.
our nonprofit directors.
Thank you, Stacy and Sonoy. How it's an incredible job, and I don't know how you can do it day after day. I mean, that's
For
one of the
30
things we
years.
keep talking about. Yeah,
love it.
it's truly giving. What else can we say?
Thanks.
Maui Nonprofit Notes is sponsored as a community service by Pacific Source, the builder's choice. Give Paul and his staff a call at 986-0380 or stop by their showroom in the Waikapu Base Yard on East Oahe Way to see how they can help you with your building project. The Maui Nonprofit Directors Association's mission is to provide personal and professional support to nonprofit executive directors, their organizations, and the community of Maui. Please visit our website at mauinonprofit.org for a list of member agencies. And if you see one there that you're interested in joining or getting together with, click on their website and check them out. Today we visited with Stacy and Sonoy of Women Helping Women. Give the hotline a call if you have something that you think needs some attention. 579-9581. Mahalo for tuning in. Don't forget to join us again next week, right here, same time, same place, when we'll feature two more representatives of agency members of the Maui Nonprofit Directors Association. Until then, I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great week, everyone. Aloha.